Welcome to the Plant Fit Summit, bringing you the best in plant-based health and fitness. This is Luke and Toby, and today we have Dr. Kristi Funk. Dr. Funk is a board-certified breast cancer surgeon and physician, best-selling author, women's health advocate, and international keynote speaker. She co-founded the Pink Lotus Breast Center in Beverly Hills, California. She's an expert in minimally invasive diagnostic and treatment methods for all types of breast disease. We start the conversation with Dr. Funk sharing about her journey into lifestyle medicine and publishing her best-selling book, Breast, the Owner's Manual. Enjoy the presentation.
Initially, I had a very thriving practice at a big hospital in LA called Cedars-Sinai, and I was one of the directors of their breast center. And I just really felt like breast health care could be delivered more efficiently and more comfortably. And my husband and I birthed the Pink Lotus Breast Center in Los Angeles, and the brick and mortar opened in 2009. And that was amazing. So women would come, and it was a real one-stop shop with state-of-the-art technology and cutting-edge holistic, compassionate care, focusing on Chinese medicine, nutrition, physical therapy. Like, we really had it down, we thought. And then I realized all is well and good that I can help women one-on-one, but I was learning so much that I really wanted to have a broader reach. So I decided a few years back to write a book, and the book called Breast, the Owner's Manual became a national bestseller. But it was in the writing of the book that my whole world was rocked and changed forever for the better. And I'm so grateful that I wanted to reach people, help women, like, across the pond and across just the whole world about their choices when it came to breast cancer, because I really felt like they were underserved and had a sort of patronized sort of, oh, okay, so this is your cancer. We're going to do this and that, and we can do it next Tuesday. Are you free? And that's all the info they got. And after the cancer was out and maybe they needed chemo and radiation, et cetera, hey, doc, what can I do? I mean, oh, sweetheart, you did everything right. You are done. You did your treatments. You go live your life. And nothing could be further from the truth in terms of the power women have over the impact of recurrence and survival, and backing all the way up to never getting cancer in the first place. And that power is in our choices and largely surrounds our diet and nutrition choices, but also a number of lifestyle choices. And I knew all this going into writing my book, but I was always like Miss Straight A, right? And got the extra credit too. So when I wrote this book, I was not going to be wrong. First, it was just my own ethos, and I couldn't put false facts out into the universe. And let's face it, I also just needed to be bulletproof, because if this book and if my thoughts were to be of any value, there would come naysayers. And I needed that bulletproof shield of science to feel good about the book that I was putting out there. So to make my long story longer, when I went, I had pretty much everything down in terms of facts, but I'll tell you, I'll be like 80% of breast cancer is fed and fueled by estrogen. That's a very important fact. But I was like, well, I've been saying that for 20 years. Maybe it's 82% now, or maybe it's 75%, right? So I would research and get all the latest and make sure that I was right. And there's, well over 1,200 annotations in the back referring to every fact I say. So this is important to set up so you understand my transition, because I went into nutritional science for the first time ever in my life, because MDs in America anyway do not get any nutrition training whatsoever. And because of that lack of training, you kind of grow up in your little medical life thinking, well, it mustn't be that important, because otherwise someone would have mentioned it sometime in the last 25 years. So when I went into the nutritional science, I knew there was stuff in there, but whoa, mind blown about the depth of knowledge and research, and not just petri dishes and mice, in humans. Across the board, no matter what it is that you're wanting to look at in terms of cause and effect, there were facts there. And so when I went into this science, I went arrogantly to prove that the way I was eating was correct, which was largely Mediterranean diet style. So lots of fruits and veggies, but tons of lean meats, chicken, turkey, fish. My husband and I had so much sushi. I promise you we were radioactive. I never wanted to check my mercury because I just didn't want to know, because I didn't want to give up my sushi. Then And here's the end of the story. Wow. It became so abundantly clear, undeniable, irrefutable, that the cellular response inside your body to consuming animal fat and animal protein is everything that feeds and fuels illness, and not just cancer, all of our killers: heart disease, stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, obesity. So clearly, the oxidative stress response, you hijack your immune system, skyrocket estrogen levels, which I've implicated as a big cancer causer, and you skyrocket insulin-like growth factor with IGF-1, this big daddy growth promoter, the biggest one in our bodies, through the roof when you eat animal protein. Inflammation, angiogenesis, so that's the angio, blood, genesis, birth, the birth of new blood vessels. These little sinister cancer cells create blood flow to get the nutrients they need. And then once they're big enough, exit strategy, straight to your brain, straight to your liver, straight to your bone. I was overwhelmed to the point where in a day, literally just opened the fridge, emptied out every animal product. I called we have 3 sons, and at the time they were just shy of 8. And I call them over to the fridge, boys, come here. They come running over, and with like flair, I open the fridge, boys, we're going vegan. And they were like, yeah, what is vegan? And that was it. That was 3 years ago. We never looked back. Done and done.
That's amazing, and kudos to you too, going down the road and actually reading the studies, which I'm not sure what is taught in medical school, but as a layman, I would have expected the studies are being shared and discussed. And, like the conclusions that are taught in medical school would be backed up by the studies that exist. So really well done for you, and now obviously sharing your message. So if you were to pick a few of the studies where you said, oh my God, like, how did I not know this? Or this is abundantly clear, as you mentioned, what would some of those studies be?
So here's some of my favorites. One of them took 100 men and women, and they gave them a standard American diet for breakfast. So we're talking like bacon and eggs, ham and whatever, I don't know, something terrible, laden with animal, like cheese in your omelet, right? And they measured oxidized LDL cholesterol as a measure of oxidized stress. So this battle inside your body, oxidants tearing things down and creating inflammation and hurting your immune system, allowing illness to arrive, versus antioxidants to quell that inflammation. And the one and only place you can get antioxidants is plants. So back to the study. So they gave them steak and eggs, pancakes and bacon. Up, the LDL cholesterol went till noon. Then they had hamburger and fries, typical American meal. Up, dinner. So every single day, meal after meal, people by and large are going to bed with fewer antioxidants than when they woke up. This study will change your eating forever, because the next day they took the same people, same sad meal, one change, a cup of strawberries. So pancakes and bacon, 1 cup of strawberries, cholesterol up, down, baseline. Hamburger and fries, 1 cup of strawberries, up, down, baseline. Wow, the power, and just a cup of strawberries, the antioxidants, which have, it's not just antioxidants, it's actually this whole world of phytochemicals, plant-based chemicals. No one wants to think of themselves as ingesting chemicals, so we like to use the word phytonutrients, because these chemicals are nutrients, and you just stick your fork into a salad and chew and swallow, and you are unleashing a wild number of chemicals that have very chemical sounding names, like the resveratrol in grape skin, or the curcumin in turmeric, or the anthocyanins in an apple, or the ellagic acid in berries. Okay, so these things, these chemicals, course through your veins, saturating all the cells of your body, making them sit in like a little bathtub. And that bathtub is either filled with pro-cancer or anti-cancer signals. And the plant kingdom is chock full of anti-cancer, so much so that you get this oxidized reduction within hours. So what would have happened if the meal itself had been steel-cut oats and a bunch of berries with cinnamon? What would have happened if that big lunch, instead of being a beef burger, had been a lentil burger? Then the oxidative stress, which even plants cause when you eat them, a little bit though, just like a little boop on the radar. Now, all these chemicals, instead of negating in the big battle against the piece of chicken you just had, it can go and start negating the problems in your body, the atherosclerotic plaque that's building up in your arteries, the few cancer cells that went all deranged, but they're not really together with their signaling yet. Boom, gone. So your immune system gets revved up. That study was so powerful because who can't add a cup of strawberries to the side of any meal? And if you really want to get an A+, there's me again, then you go totally plant-based. But even small changes meal to meal are better for you, better for the planet. I mean, it's unbelievable what small changes can do. And then you start to rearrange your palate. You start to actually crave those foods. You feel so much better. So that was one big study. The other, there's so many, but I have a lot of favorites, but one that I love because it speaks to the power. Everybody's a little bit like, give it to me now, right? And that's just how the world works now. And not all good things can come overnight, but turns out some can come pretty darn quickly. So when I'm sitting with a woman, let's say she's 68 years old, on the chunky side, and has been eating fried chicken and French fries, not thinking that was a lean meat, and just didn't really understand food much. She's like, look, doc, I have breast cancer now. I've been living this way forever. It's too late for me to change like that. That's when I say, oh no, sister, let me tell you a study. So here, Toby, I'm going to tell you my favorite study, I think, of all of them. So a bunch of obese women, not sick, not with cancer sick, overweight and obese. They took them and did a couple things. They did their blood draws. They measured IGF-1, which we've explained is the biggest growth promoter inside your body. Useful because we turn over a shocking 50 billion cells a day. So IGF-1 turns those cells over for us. We need it, we want it, but we don't want excess, because if there's an excess, it's just screaming, grow, grow cancer, grow into the lungs, right? Grow plaque in those arteries. And animal protein is the only thing that will give you a spike and an excess of IGF-1. So we measure these overweight ladies, IGF-1, baseline level, binding protein for IGF-1, which is the thing that retires it from circulation. And then they take their blood and they drip it on a petri dish carpeted with human breast cancer cells. A few cells die. I mean, anybody's going to have a little bit of immune function or they'd be dead. So some cells die. Now, they go away and they're told eat a low fat, 10 to 15% of calories, low fat, high fiber diet, whole food, plant-based, and exercise for 30 minutes a day. And when we say exercise, it's like sauntering around the block for these women. It's not some heavy duty, like, and run a marathon by Friday, right? So they go away for how long? What would you think it would take to create amazing change? 6 months, 2 years, 12 days. 12 days they come back. Blood draw, IGF-1 plummeted, binding protein skyrocketed, blood dripped onto a fresh petri dish of breast cancer cells. 90% of the cells died on the spot. Just by eliminating the toxicities that build up in your blood from eating on a meal-to-meal basis, a little cheese here, a little meat there. Get rid of that for a couple of weeks and you have transformed your blood into a cancer-kicking machine. And that study blew my mind because it's so immediate. Who can't give 2 weeks a try to save their lives?
That's unbelievable. Wow. I don't know how to follow up. We could end it right here, but no, this is purely like, it's mind blowing. One thing I want to follow up on is you mentioned that there's almost always some individual cancer cells in our bodies. Is that the case? And where do they come from? Is that a natural occurring phenomenon? And then what does the body typically do when it's healthy and has a functioning immune system versus maybe if it's not so healthy, what happens?
Right. It's a great question. All cancers are, in their itty bitty origin, are cells that have gone a little bit awry. They're no longer responding to the normal check and balances. They're growing without control and without order. But a 1 centimeter sugar cube or like a peanut M&M worth of cancer has 1 billion cancer cells. And just like any cell dividing, one cell becomes 2, becomes 4, becomes 8. So if you do math backwards on a 1 centimeter cancer from any organ in the body, and everything has an inherent cell division rate, so maybe, and we have a way to measure that, but by and large, when it comes to breast cancer, when you find a centimeter sugar cube, that first cell went awry about 8 years ago. So it takes a long time for cancer cells to build up the weaponry they need, the volume they need to, first of all, be detected, and second of all, escape and cause some systemic problems for you. Cells, it's really just a process of altering the signals or even of dying. Like, so cells, they just start to respond differently. And we have an intact alert immune system that's like, whoa, you're not responding right. Either fix it or throw it out. One very well-known mutation in the checks and balances is called BRCA or BRCA. So everybody has BRCA genes and they function. And when they do, they are like housekeeper, right? That either fixes the DNA or throws it out when it goes awry. And when it comes to BRCA for women, it's particularly responsive to deranged cells in the breast and the ovaries, but also has problems with melanoma, pancreatic cancer, and prostate in men. So BRCA mutations are when your fix-it gene is not working. So now a breast cell goes awry and BRCA is like, ooh, good luck with that. Can't fix it. So this is why that particular mutation is such a problem, because its real world is in those breast and ovary cells to fix them. So we always have cells that are just mutated, and if left unattended to, they're going to just start doing whatever they want. And sort of like, it's almost like militia, like it's just marching forward undeterred until something surprise attacks it.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned these genes, and a lot of the perception, at least, is that a lot of cancer is caused by genes. So how big of a role do genes play in the development of cancer? Is it the mutation of the BRCA gene, or and how does it compare to maybe other factors?
Excellent question, because this is a huge myth. Most women and doctors will say, well, I asked, breast cancer doesn't run in the family, so it's really not a problem. What? Because here's the answer to your question. Only 5 to 10% of all breast cancer on planet Earth is attributed to an inheritable gene mutation like BRCA or CHEK2 or PALB2. There's a number of them. 5 to 10%. The other percent, 90 to 95%, is under your control. It's up to you. It's up to the dietary choices that you're making for every time you put a forkful to your mouth. Everything you're deciding what to think and not think, what to do and not do, what to eat and not eat, what to breathe and not breathe, are choices you're making toward cancer or away all day long. Now, I do like to speak to this unknown percentage, but it's quite small. So 5% or less on this side of your bell curve just doesn't make sense. It's the breast cancer in a vegan since birth, ideal body weight, zenned out, no stress. Like, we all have those stories to point to it and say, see, it's not diet and lifestyle. But I'll give you that. It's a mystery that we hope to solve. And on the other end of our bell curve, 5 to 10% inherited genetics. But this big fat middle, for sure 80% or more of all breast cancer on planet Earth, diet and lifestyle, proven in so many studies to be related to not only nutrition, although that's like a boulder. I like to kind of think about what contributes to cancer, what contributes to disease. There are boulders on this scale of health versus illness. And if you've got obesity, if you've got excessive alcohol use, if you've got a lack of exercise, and if you're eating a heavy animal-based diet, you have a boulder on your scale. And while pebbles and a grain of sand can certainly tip a scale that's evenly balanced, if you have a boulder, don't even worry about what you think some BPA in a plastic water bottle is doing inside your body, because literally the estrogen mimicking effect of BPA is 100,000 times less potent than the growth promoter put into conventionally raised beef cattle called Zeranol. So if you have a hamburger with a glass water bottle, because you're smart enough to know you probably shouldn't have a plastic one, but you're eating a beef burger, you just don't know the facts. You just don't know the strength of causation of these factors inside your body. So I digressed a bit, but the genetics is a small component, but real. And don't get me wrong, if you have BRCA, we've got some talking to do. And the just craziness of like, we don't get that cancer. They exist and they're real. But if we could focus on what we know is absolutely contributing to the major bulk of cancers, it just so happens that some of those strategies that you would employ are going to make the journeys of these two outliers much happier, with a better ending in terms of recurrence and death from illness. So yeah, genetics is certainly not the be all end all, but if you have a strong family history, or you yourself, I mean, the major flags, if you're wondering, well, I have one aunt with a breast, it's basically, you think about first, second, and third generations, forward and back. So, you know, kids, nieces, and if you are not Ashkenazi Jewish, you need to have 2 relatives with either breast cancer prior to the age of 50 or ovarian cancer at any age. If you're Ashkenazi, then you only need 1 relative with breast under 50 or ovarian at any age. I frankly think all Ashkenazi Jews should be tested for BRCA because it's 1 in 40 carry it. Everybody else, 1 in 500. So that's why the Ashkenazi part. If you yourself have had breast cancer, I always test you, but the hard and fast rule was breast cancer under the age of 50 or an aggressive triple negative under 60. If there are any male breast cancers in the family, that's super rare. So women, 1 in 8 chance of getting breast cancer. Men, 1.3 in 100,000. So if there's a man with breast cancer in the family tree, for sure test. A known gene mutation, obviously that can trickle towards you, so that's a no-brainer. And finally, just a whole lot of cancer going on, particularly breast, ovary, colorectal, prostate, melanoma, gastric, and uterine.
Yeah, and how would you go about testings? Let's say someone has looked at their family history and they feel like, okay, maybe I should be testing. What exactly would they be testing for?
So there are a number of different testing companies on the market, many, many reputable ones, and your family physician or gynecologist would possibly be doing it in their own offices, but they definitely would have a recommendation of where to go. But it's actually as simple now as going online. So we have at pinklotus.com, we have a kit that's a great, worldwide company called Color, and that test gets mailed to your home, and then you just register it online, spit into a tube, it's saliva based, and then you'll have your results with a board certified genetic counselor meeting to interpret the results with you. So yeah, you can either just ask your physician or do it yourself.
Yeah, perfect. So easy nowadays. That's amazing. You mentioned earlier that overweight also plays a role, and can you explain maybe what's the cascade effects of being overweight that would lead or contribute to cancer growing?
Great question. So having more fat means you have in every fat cell more of this enzyme called aromatase. Aromatase is busy churning away at other steroids and making them into more estrogen. So specifically testosterone and androstenedione, which come from your adrenal gland. Testosterone comes from ovaries as well, even menopausal ovaries. So you're like, I'm not making any estrogen. I've been like hot flashing my way to a divorce for the last 5 years. I'm miserable and I definitely don't have estrogen. Surprise, you do. So everywhere you have fat cells, you are making some estrogen. It's not enough to make you fertile or stop those hot flashes necessarily, but it's definitely enough to feed and fuel breast cancer. So obesity is a direct connection to having elevated estrogen levels. And that was proven in studies just by doing blood draws in women who are not taking any hormone replacement therapy. And it was basically linear. The heavier you are, the higher your estrogen level is, and you're in menopause. So, it's not that you have none, you do have some. Estrogen being the bad actor. Actually, there's a great study that shows increased in weight after high school. So if you think of your weight when you were in high school and how much you've gained since then, plus or minus 8 pounds, there's no elevation in breast cancer risk. But if you've gained between 8 and 20 pounds, there's a 8 and 14 pounds, there's a 25% increase in breast cancer. And if you've gained between 14 and 20 pounds, there's a 60% increase in breast cancer. And if you've gained more than 20 pounds since high school, you just doubled your risk of breast cancer. So fat is directly contributing via the axis of making more estrogen. And as I've mentioned a few times, the majority of all breast cancers are fed and fueled by estrogen. The good news in this scenario is that other longitudinal studies have shown lose the weight, lose the risk. So there's no like sins of the past that you're married to. Lose the weight, lose the risk.
That's good news for sure. Talking about estrogen, there's a lot of talk about soy and soy-based products and how they have a form of estrogen. Is that a quote-unquote risk as well?
It's a risk if you don't consume soy, it turns out. So harking back to the beginning of this, when we were talking about myself and doing my deep dive into nutrition, okay, at the time of writing, I've been just a breast cancer surgeon. So done with residency, done with fellowship, cancer surgeon, out there preaching it to spit that miso soup right out of your mouth, ladies, because it has estrogen in it. Are you kidding me? How much do you love soy? Like, forget about it. It's got estrogens. And that was the extent of my knowledge. I knew that there were plant-based estrogens, isoflavones, genistein being the big one, but I thought that your body was not discriminatory in its taste of estrogens. So in other words, that receptor sitting on a cancer cell, when filled with your own estrogen, is going to send a signal to the cancer to multiply and divide. I'm like, it doesn't know if that estrogen came from your ovary or hormone replacement therapy or an edamame bean. So no to soy. Then I went into the science to write my book to be correct and really just to prove why you shouldn't be eating soy. And I was like, ooh, embarrassingly wrong. Sorry about that, ladies, for the last 18 years. Not only is soy fine to have, it's literally protective against getting breast cancer by so high versus low soy consumers, 60% less occurrence of breast cancer. And once they have an estrogen-driven or worse, estrogen-negative cancer, worse in terms of prognosis, between studies vary, 30 to 60% less recurrence and 30% less death from breast cancer, even in estrogen negatives. So this whole estrogen axis isn't even the major power of soy. It also has anti-carcinogenic properties, anti-inflammatory properties that reduce all cancer recurrence. And the reason being, the science here is not above anybody's head. It's super obvious once you understand. And I was just like, why didn't I know this? Although, in my own defense, there were no human studies. A lot were in petri dishes and mice until 2009. But since 2009, you really haven't been paying attention to the soy literature because there are like 8 excellent, large volume, multi-ethnic human studies looking at soy consumption and breast cancer risk. And that's just breast cancer. I'm not talking, soy consumption decreases prostate cancer between 30 and 70% in high consumers versus low. And some of these studies, honestly, high consumption was defined as 1.5 servings a week. I mean, I have 3 servings a day. Back to the science. So turns out there are 2 receptors in our body for estrogen, alpha and beta. Alpha is the bad actor on the cancer cells. Beta, however, is the preferred receptor for your soy, your genistein and isoflavones. So with 1,600% more affinity, it's going to hit beta. And when it does, it sets 2 things in motion. One, it makes alpha get shut down. So now you're actually blocking the real estrogen in your body from being able to hit. And without its cancer fuel, this little guy is going to peter out and die, hence the decreased recurrence. Then it goes out, we've already discussed this, aromatase, the fat cell enzyme that's making more. Not anymore, because soy inhibits the enzyme. So you're suddenly with less estrogen and with fewer available bad receptors on cancer cells. Soy is probably better digested and a little more powerful in its fermented form. So we're talking miso, natto, tempeh, and tamari. But these studies, by the way, That's not what they were looking at. We're talking more conventional, slightly processed, like soy milk, always non-GMO, preferably organic, just never GMO. For soy and corn crops, there's so much glyphosate. I'm not 100% gung-ho, like everything must be organic. That's just not possible for some people in what's available in their neighborhoods and financially. Thankfully, the prices are coming down on organic pretty rapidly, I would say. But still, sometimes if the basket of strawberries organic is $4 more than the other one, you make your choices. But the point is, don't skimp on soy because you want it to be non-GMO. And so slightly processed soy milk, tofu, edamame, roasted soybeans, all of those are going to give you nothing but benefit.
That's amazing. And it's so delicious too. I mean, all these great products. We love miso soup. One question, because you mentioned in your book as well, fiber and how fiber plays a role in estrogen levels as well. Can you explain how that works inside our bodies?
Yeah, so fiber is quite simply, people think of fiber as like getting you some good bowel movements, which it does, and we're grateful for those, but it does a whole lot more. And we're just kind of scratching the surface of how powerful fiber is in terms of it being the prebiotic that your little bacteria in your microbiome love to digest. And when they do that, they're releasing short chain fatty acids and other just neurotransmitters, different chemicals that again go coursing through your veins, affecting things for the good, elevating your mood, decreasing atherosclerotic plaque, helping annihilate cancer cells. So it's very powerful on that front, but quite practically, it also binds estrogen, excess estrogen, and makes you poop it out. So fiber, sadly, all I'm asking out of people is 30 grams a day, and you will drop breast cancer incidence by 50%. Now, 30 grams is not that hard to get. A cup of beans will have 15 grams, avocado, 13 grams, a cup of raspberries, 8 grams. It really is sad that 97% of Americans do not get 30 grams of fiber a day. And ironically, everybody basically gets enough protein. Kwashiorkor is a disease that I read about in medical school and have never seen in my life, and it is a protein deficiency disorder. And basically, people don't have it because they get plenty of protein. You don't need to look at something like a big rack of lamb and think, oh, I need that protein. You're getting your protein. And in point of fact, 97% of people worry that they don't get enough protein when those same people should be really worried that they're definitely not getting enough fiber.
Yeah, that's amazing. Speaking of protein, you mentioned earlier that animal proteins or animal-based proteins increase the IGF-1 in our bodies. How does that work, this whole mechanism? And does it matter where that protein comes from? Is it grass-fed beef? Does it behave the same as, let's say, a standard hamburger or bacon?
In general, plant proteins don't elevate IGF-1, but anything in excess will. So I know from my research, because I was worried about how much soy to recommend as a protein source. And it turns out that IGF-1 elevates when you have 7 servings of soy-based food. So we know for sure nothing elevates for 4 servings, and 5 and 6, I couldn't find anything that really pinpointed those two. So my strong recommendation is 2 to 3 servings of soy a day, because I'm like 1 shy of what I know is safe and not getting into. So basically proteins it's your liver that's making the IGF-1, and it doesn't matter what the protein source is, you're going to make more IGF-1. It just takes a real excess before it gets ignited when you're consuming plant protein. It's a lot of, it would be hard to ingest on a regular basis anyway, a ton of plant protein from a single source like soy that's going to elevate IGF-1.
That's good to know. A lot of people fear sugar as well, and often sugar is linked as a quote-unquote cancer-causing food. What's the reason behind it? Is there some truth to it? And does that mean we should fear carbohydrates, or maybe are there some finer differences?
Terrific question, because it's complicated but very understandable. So basically, it's refined sugars that you're finding in cookies and cakes and ice creams and white bread and bagels that are very rapidly and very readily absorbed through the intestinal wall into the bloodstream. And when sugar is in the bloodstream, your pancreas is like, oh, let's use it. Food's here. Insulin skyrockets to deal with the glucose that suddenly just became ubiquitous in this blood, right? But it's the actually the insulin skyrocketing that becomes the reason for, on a repetitive daily basis, day after day of eating these foods, insulin is the reason for the illness arising. Because as you recall, insulin is the big, like, grow, that's insulin like growth factor, but that's insulin. Insulin is use it or store it. We're certainly not going to get rid of it because this is food and our bodies are like primed for those days of yore when it was feast or famine, literally. And so in days of famine, you needed good storage of energy. So insulin is the coach that's like, you know, saying, hey, you get that glucose, use it to do whatever your self does in this body. And if you're not going to use it, we're going to store it. Glycogen in the liver, glycogen in the muscle. Oh, there's more. We'll break it down and we'll make it fat, and then we'll make you fat, right? So that's the problem with refined sugars. It's that mechanism that skyrockets the insulin that then creates all of this excess storage. And insulin is the growth promoter, and in excess is going to promote all the growth of bad things in your body too. So the other part of your question, though, is what about complex carbohydrates? When you're eating foods like potatoes and beans, you're going to be ingesting them in their whole food form, and these sugar molecules aren't refined like out of a like poured as crystals into the cookie dough, right? So they are slowly released. Oh, and the sugar in fruit. I can't stand it when diabetics are told not to eat fruit. Even that is not going to skyrocket anybody's sugar to the point where their insulin jumps up. So basically, when you're eating these whole foods and they do have sugar in the form of carbohydrate as the macronutrient, it's going to get broken down so slowly and released. And this is shown in studies that the spike in insulin is higher with a piece of chicken or fish than it is with eating a bunch of fruit. So don't worry about the sugar in fruit. It's tied to fibers and all those other awesome compounds that go in with the fruit, the phytonutrients. And there's a slow release mechanism going on all throughout your intestines that's not going to lead to a spike in insulin.
That's good to know. When you were talking about the boulders, one of them was exercise. So is that just to lose weight, or are there other benefits to exercising, and how much should we exercise?
It's not just to lose weight, and it certainly is a great way, though, to maintain weight loss, but it has a real effect on your immune system function. It revs it up. And in terms of like how much, so there's one really powerful study, because again, it's so actionable. Like, who can't do what I'm about to say? It looked at 17,000 women, followed them for 10 years, and those who exercised literally up to 11 minutes a day. Wow, 11 minutes a day. And we're talking walking fast, power walking, not like sprinting, dropped breast cancer by 18%. And those who put a little more pep in their step and really worked out moderately. So again, kind of hard to talk, but not impossible. Like if you're jogging together or something, 30 to 40% decrease for those who worked out 3 to 4 hours a week. So when you look at the best recommendations of how long and how much, if you can chit chat with a girlfriend while you're doing whatever you're doing, whether it's, Zumba or Peloton or something, 5 hours a week. And if it's quite vigorous so that you're super sweaty and it would be hard to carry on a normal conversation, you can cut it in half to 2.5 hours a week.
Yeah, and that's 11 minutes a day. Anyone can do that for sure. We were talking earlier about, before we started, how the risk and the cancer rates increase as we age, and almost, you said, up till the end. So what's the reason behind it? And is there anything we can do as we age to further protect us?
Oh, absolutely. You can do things to protect yourself. So the reason behind is that the cells have been, you've been around long enough. So the cumulative effects of your bad behavior are now just pounding on that immune system's ability to seek out and destroy cancer cells. And in point of fact, so 5% of breast cancer in the United States is under the age of 40, 20% is under 50. So that easy math tells you between 40 and 50 years old, it's like 15% of all cancers. But that means 80% of all cancer is after the age of 50. So And it goes up and up and up in incidence until 80. So the highest decade of risk is 70 to 80 years old. Those who get breast cancer after 80 are the highest, they have the highest risk of dying from their breast cancers too. And that's actually causation. Like you think, well, they're 85, they just died. But actually, when you look at dying from breast cancer, it's highest when you're older, which is another reason why I'm annoyed at the recommendations for women. Oh, over 74, you can just stop screening now. You don't have to worry about mammograms or having your doctor check your breasts. Oh, because you're in the highest risk decade of life, just forget about it now. So just people don't necessarily think that. The median age, so half at or above and half below, is 62. So that's when you hit the median age for breast cancer. There's so much you can do as you age to slow down that process. So, for example, Walter Longo, who's at USC, has been doing a lot of research on aging and looking at the pathways and the mechanisms that create aging. And he's uncovered a couple of pathways, mTOR and PKA, that are driven by what? What drives aging? And it turns out to be two major things. One of them is eating animal protein. Therefore, to slow down aging, and you think about it, when you age, what makes you die is most likely in this day and age, heart attack, stroke, diabetes, Alzheimer's, cancer, right? They are big killers. So if eating, so aging is going to bring on these diseases, which then kills you. So if eating animal protein is a driver of this mTOR pathway, then eating plants should stop, possibly reverse it. And in point of fact, that's what they've shown. The other big driver, though, is eating at all. So this is where fasting comes into play. There's short-term, like daily fasting, and then there's longer-term fasting, which both inhibit this pathway. So there you have it, because if animal protein is the driver, whole food plant-based is the brake in that car, right? So you want to be eating plant-based, and you want to have periods of time, short and longer, where you're not eating at all. And that is going to create cell rejuvenation and renewal and heighten the alertness, so to speak, of your immune system so that it can get rid of those damaged, deranged cells, be they atherosclerotic plaque or cancer.
Mm-hmm. There's certainly a lot that we can do. But as a question also, let's say someone is listening and maybe they're facing cancer or they have just had surgery and they're trying to recover. Are there any products that you can recommend or resources that they can turn to for further help?
Oh, sure. I mean, we've online at pinklotus.com, we've got a store called Elements, and we've gathered there a number of research-backed, vetted products that really help women through their breast cancer journeys. So some of them are things such as like Menopause Miracle, which is 3 randomized controlled trials in humans showing it doesn't increase estrogen, because one of the biggest life-altering moments in this breast cancer journey is when your ovaries are either taken out surgically or chemically removed by taking anti-estrogens or chemotherapy, and all of a sudden you're thrust into menopause, either again, round 2 for someone who's older, or for the first time at an unnaturally young age, like say 40. And rather than just telling you to tough it out because you can't take estrogen, we've found some things that really work and have been shown with blood draws not to increase your estrogen. They don't impede the liver metabolism of the drugs you might be on, like tamoxifen. And then there are just some really amazing comfort things like bras for after surgery. So check it out if you're in the throes of this. There's Joint Peace, which helps with, everything is vegan. Joint Peace is amazing. It's a vegan formulation that helps. Joint pain is the #1 complaint of anyone on an aromatase, the fat enzyme inhibitor. So there's a pill that does what we talked about, what soy can do. And that has side effects, unlike soy, that can be kind of brutal, and joint pain is chief among them. So there are a number of products in there that can help make the journey a little less painful, literally. And more importantly, there's a whole online community there. It's called Power Up. It's completely free, and you just sign up and you can get, my favorite thing in there is Breast Buddies. So you could go in and put, say you're 52 years old, you could put in 52, and as you put in stuff, like Match.com, all these women populate there who match you, like plus or minus 5 years of your age, stage for stage. So if you're stage 1, if you had a mastectomy, like as soon as you add things in, chemotherapy, it'll weed out who didn't have chemo, because you're probably wanting to, oh wait, she has an 8-year-old son, I want to talk to her. It's a really beautiful thing. There was a terrific study, LACE, the Life After Cancer Epidemiology Study, that followed 2,200 early stage, so stage 1 and 2, 0, 1 and 2, breast cancer patients for 10.8 years. And what they found after 10 years, early stage, right? They're not stage 4 and they aren't expected to die. There was 58% more death from breast cancer in those who reported out low psychosocial support. In other words, community matters. It decreases stress. It makes you feel less alone in the world. And that mind-body connection literally translates into a drop in these inflammatory cytokines. I mean, it's been measured in people. So again, letters and numbers that might not mean anything to you, but like interleukin-1 and IL-6 and CRP and all these cytokines go down, calm you, boost your immune system, and it actually translates into a longer cancer-free life. So not everybody comes to their breast cancer moment with a BFF or a healthy marriage or that support system that they need. So we're providing it. It's worldwide and multilingual, and I encourage everybody to check it out. So that's called Power Up.
That's amazing. Really, everyone just go have a look, especially if you're facing or you know someone who is facing breast cancer. Maybe as a last question, what would you say are some of the quote unquote superfoods that people really should have in their diet for like the best bang for their buck?
Yeah, I love this question. Okay, so where do I start? Now, there are some I've really researched as they pertain to breast, but you know, if you're staving off breast cancer, please, like that same thing isn't going to stop liver cancer or colon cancer. So these are amazing foods for all of health, but some of them are very breast specific and some of them are targeting that estrogen mechanism. So the biggest anti-estrogen foods to consume are going to be soy. You already got that down. Flax seeds. Flax seeds are the hero amongst heroes to me. There was this one study, everybody had a breast cancer diagnosis. Everybody got a flaxseed muffin or a placebo muffin. And as you know from our discussion on refined sugars and carbs, I'm not even a muffin fan, but listen to this. Even with a crappy muffin, flaxseed versus placebo, 3 weeks later, they get their, so you measure on a cancer biopsy, you can measure division rates. We mentioned division rates, proliferate. Ki-67 is the word for that, and it's a percentage, 0 to 100. How many cells are dividing right now versus dormant and asleep? Measure Ki-67, get your muffin, eat one every day. 3 weeks later, get your cancer surgery, remeasure the Ki-67. In those who got a flaxseed muffin, the only change in their whole lives, a flaxseed muffin, the Ki-67 dropped by 80% compared to the placebo muffin. Okay, so flax it up. I have 2 tablespoons of ground flax seeds every single day. How do you eat ground flax seeds? You put them in a smoothie. I have an amazing antioxidant smoothie recipe that you can just Google. It's around. And I have that literally 4 days a week. And the other 3 days, I'll have oatmeal, always. So steel cut oats, the flax goes either in the smoothie or in the oats. It can be in a salad dressing. It's really easy once you just start to work with flax, if you're unfamiliar. It is the most potent source of healthy monounsaturated omega-3 fats on planet Earth, and it has 200 times the lignans than any other plant food on planet Earth that we know about. 200 times. Who cares about lignans? You do, because they're anti-estrogen, and that's the mechanism through which flax does its magic on these, like, you know, the muffin story. So we've got soy, we've got flax, and the big other bad one, as in good, is cruciferous vegetables, and chief among them is going to be broccoli. These, like broccoli, bok choy, kale, arugula, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, that's the whole family we're talking about. But something is insane, like a green caped hero in broccoli, and that something is called sulforaphane. It literally appears in your mouth when you chew, so it's not there inherently in the food. It's a form of, again, I'm saying these chemicals to make you impressed, isothiocyanates, ITCs, that I want you to, like, it's real science. So you chew this broccoli and you break the cell wall with your chompers, And myrosinase, this enzyme, comes out, and it takes that ITC and it makes it into this superhero called sulforaphane, which literally can seek out and destroy cancer cells. There's also another compound, indole-3-carbinol, makes you pee out excess estrogen. So it works on different levels and mechanisms to fight for your health on your behalf. And all you did was chew and swallow it. Like, it's unbelievable. So broccoli needs to be consumed raw or lightly steamed. Otherwise, you're going to lyse the cell. You're going to lose the myrosinase enzyme. So little just pro tip for those who are like, you're really bugging me now because my favorite thing on earth is roasted broccoli. Here's your pro tip. Whenever you roast your broccoli or any of the cruciferous vegetables, if they're cooked, just chop up some raw and add it on. And so then you're getting your enzyme back, and it can make use of the ITCs that are in all the cooked food, and or put a pinch, and literally just need a pinch of mustard powder, which comes from mustard seed, which also has myrosinase. Okay, moving on. Berries are super awesome for all of those chemicals that are in berries. I make sure I get at least a cup, usually 2 cups of berries a day. Believe it or not, just a simple apple, and of all the apples, the red apple in the skin, the anthocyanins in there, 27% drop in breast cancer for those who eat an apple a day. So not apple pie, but apples. Seaweed, the iodine in seaweed and the kelp, there's properties in seaweed that are very anti-inflammatory. The whole allium family, which is your onions, scallions, those are similar to the broccoli story. That's another eat it raw. Or if you've cooked it, throw in some raw ones. So alliinase is that enzyme that creates the magic power allicin. So you've got to have some raw stuff there, but those are your immunity bulbs. They really spike your immune system. And for my sugar lovers out there, dark chocolate, 70% cacao or more, just a little square a day is also going to do wonders for you. Oh, and one more, mushrooms. Get this. They did a study on the anti-estrogen power of mushrooms. And you'd think like some expensive portobello, chanterelle, some fancy thing you can't pronounce kind of mushroom would be the winner. The cheapo white button mushroom. 1 mushroom a day decreased breast cancer because it's an aromatase inhibitor. It's one of those fat cell enzyme stoppers. So there you have it. There's a big list of power foods.
Wow. And I know you've got so much more to share. I encourage everyone to look up the book, Breast, the Owner's Manual, and any other place they can follow you or maybe get in touch with you, because obviously, you can't see everyone in person, but maybe there's a chance for them to get in touch with you.
Absolutely. I do telemedicine for sure. So at Dr. Kristi Funk is my tag, and then pinklotus.com. If you go there, you'll find it, but pinklotus.com/care, and you can just write to us and say what your need is and if you're interested in talking to me.
Wow. That's amazing. Well, thank you so much for bringing your knowledge and sharing it with our audience. That was truly amazing and such an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Toby.
We hope you've enjoyed this presentation. A wise man once said, "You make a new life by making new choices." Now, if you know that what you eat matters, if you know that health comes from healthy living, then the time to make new choices is now. And just imagine owning the summit for life. Click the button for more. Maybe you know our stories. Luke and I lost family to cancer, and we wish we would have known sooner what you are learning here today. So please, share the summit, take action, and let's support each other. Thank you. This is Toby and Luke signing off, and we can't wait to see you for the next presentation.